Good evening. I'm Nicholas Johnston. I'm the publisher of Axios. Thank you all for being here. One of the funnest parts of my job is getting out of Washington, D.C. and visiting some of the cities where we have Axios local newsletters. Of course, I love all my children equally, but come on, Atlanta is the best, so it's great to be back here. For those of you who are subscribers to Axios Atlanta, thank you so much. Like, all the journalism we do here is in service of you, it's possible for you, and all the investments that we do in our journalism wouldn't be possible without the support of our partners. So we're hugely, hugely grateful for UL Standards and Engagement for supporting us and making this conversation tonight possible. And I'm very excited to welcome, for a view from the top conversation, UL Standards and Engagement Director of Government Engagement, David Martin, and Director of Data Science and Standards Engineering, Dr. Denice Durrant. David and Denice, welcome back to the Axios stage. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's start a little big picture for this crowd. Can you talk a little bit about UL Standards and Engagement, their role as a nonprofit, what kind of standards they develop? Let's take a step back for folks here who might not be so familiar.
Yeah, absolutely. So David and I represent UL Standards and Engagement. We are a nonprofit standards development organization. We like to refer to ourselves as a safety organization, a safety science organization. And our role in society is just to ensure that there are standards, and a standard is simply a document that provides minimum performance requirements, safety guidance for many of the products that we all touch and interact with on a daily basis. The best experiment that I love to do with people who aren't familiar with standards is to talk about this room, for example. A lot of the infrastructure in this room, the smoke detectors, the sprinklers, all of those things have standards behind them. And the role of a standard is to ensure that that product can operate safely. The last thing that we want, is for a fire to break out. And there have been many fires over the years in residential and commercial structures, and without the proper sprinklers, without the proper detection mechanisms, fires can be extremely catastrophic, versus we can implement through standards great prevention, detection, suppression, and even recovery mechanisms so that we all are safe. So David and I are here from UL Standards and Engagement. I'm representing the data science and engineering side, so let me apologize in advance because I'm going to talk about the science, which is the fun stuff for me.
Oh, don't apologize for science. Come on. No. And David, dig a little bit into your role at UL.
Sure. So I work on the government affairs side for UL Standards and Engagement, and we're really here to kind of spread the gospel about voluntary consensus standards and how they're developed. That's a key difference with the American system. We have a rigorous system for developing standards, and what's really unique and great about them is that they're continually updated. So technology moves really fast today, and it's important that our laws keep apace with that rate of change, and standards are a creative solution for policymakers looking to be on the cutting edge of those things.
So we're talking about technology moving fast. This is our What's Next series of events here at Axios, and we're focused a lot on e-mobility here. This is not something theoretical for me. There's a lot of scooters and electric bikes around town. I literally rode one of them here to this event. It was a lot of fun. I only got lost once. Talk to us a little bit, though, from your vantage point, what are the important things to understand about the rise of e-mobility in cities? What are the misconceptions that we should be on the eye for?
So with e-mobility, one of the things that we're seeing is that electrified forms of transportation are starting to become a lot more popular, where lithium-ion batteries, which are used in a lot of these products, were typically used in larger technologies. We're starting to see them be implemented in new ways. So everything from your battery-powered toothbrush to, like Nick mentioned earlier, an e-bike are powered by what's called a lithium-ion battery. And where that sounds really cool, it can be really dangerous as well. And so for us, it's important that we balance the risk. Some of these products have outsized risk, and so it's important that standards can help balance that. We do not want to stifle innovation. That is always a very strong critique for people who aren't familiar with the work that we do, but we want to make sure that when these products enter society and the market, that they are safe. And with lithium-ion batteries, one of the primary hazards that we're concerned about is battery fires that are basically the result of something called thermal runaway. So here goes the science.
Here comes the science.
Here
All right,
comes the
we're ready.
science. All right, so thermal runaway, like I mentioned, is one of the primary hazards associated with lithium-ion batteries. Basically what that means is that battery has entered a state of uncontrollable self-heating. So it needs to release that heat. The only way to do that is for that battery to release toxic gases or to explode or to catch on fire, which is what we don't want. I see some eyeballs just raised. So when we think about something as simple as an e-bike, being on the streets of Atlanta, I saw quite a few of them on my way here versus North Carolina, where I'm from. But when you see those types of products out there, the last thing that we want is for those products to catch on fire and to result in injuries and fatalities, which we've seen around the world, not just in the United States.
That's right. Another common misconception is, that these are just toys, right? People just use them to play and they're for kids. That's not the case anymore. People are using these to get to work. They're a great part of a functioning kind of modern urban economy. We have a report, it's actually available here, and we found that over 50% of users actually use e-mobility devices, e-bikes, e-scooters to get to work. And I just learned on the last panel, you have 2 million people coming. They're on their way, right? Hopefully they're not all going to
get around?
That's right. They're going to need to get to work in a lot of different ways. And, just making sure that these devices are safe. I mean, it's going to be really important when those folks get here.
So then let's talk about, Denice, you scared us a little bit of the science. Now, make us feel a little better. Tell us about, what are the solutions? What are best practices? What are things we should be thinking about to prevent those?
Definitely. So standards, let's go back to the idea of a standard. This is a document that, again, provides minimum performance requirements. So when we think about lithium-ion batteries, there are different test methodologies, for example, that are incorporated into that standard to basically reverse engineer the safety. What happens if you overheat a lithium-ion battery? It's going to catch on fire, or it's going to get really hot and possibly explode. So some of those types of tests are in our standards. Some of those destructive tests are in that standard to basically try to achieve a failure so that we can see where those minimum requirements need to be at a level that keeps us all safe. And so why that's important is because we want to make sure, again, that when these products enter the market, enter our society, that they're not introducing a new risk. It's important to balance those risks because electrified forms of transportation are important for cities like Atlanta that are growing.
Can we talk about, before we run out of time, the flip side of that? There are batteries, they need to be charged. What does the importance of that and the standards fit into how we should think about charging infrastructure for these kinds of e-mobility?
Charging's a big deal. So for I'll just touch on this quickly, but for any city that's considering trying to use standards to make these products safer for their people is, you want to take a holistic approach to safety, right? And we advocate for that entire ecosystem. That involves the charging because people are going to replace their batteries. They may order batteries offline. You want to make sure that you have educated consumers that are replacing those components with ones that meet a certain safety standard, but you also want to make sure that they're doing safe charging practices. We actually have a Fire Safety Research Institute which did a Take Charge campaign, and it's online. You can look it up. It has some best practices. You want to be careful not just with e-mobility devices, but with anything that has a lithium-ion battery.
Yeah, and definitely. One of the things that we do as part of UL Standards and Engagement is advocate for the safe implementation of these types of products. So as the city of Atlanta continues to grow, we want you to consider the fact that there are standards out there that you can enact, and that is going to drive, safety. Minimize some of the risks that are associated with these products.
So as we wrap up here, before we run out of time, I want to leave a little bit of homework for folks in the room. I love about these events is that you get a crowd that's really interested in these kinds of topics and that is engaged in these solutions. What's the homework for them? What's the one thing they should take away from that so they can be part of the solution for figuring this kind of stuff out?
I think the one thing is, don't ban products, don't ban technology. The way to do it is to make sure that it's safe, and this is a first thing that you can do. So instead of trying to address these new issues with a ban, consider voluntary consensus standards that are developed by academia, experts, fire marshals, fire chiefs, firefighters. It's really important that everyone has a seat at the table, and the American National Standards Process and ULSE ensures that happens.
Yeah, and regardless, anytime you're using any of these products that are out there, look for that safety label, look for those safety warnings, educate yourself about the products that you're using. Don't be fearful of the possible risk, but I think education is a big piece of safety in the safety ecosystem.
Awesome. Thank you, Denice. Thanks, David, for making this possible today. Thanks to UL Standards and Engagement for making this whole evening possible. Thank you for being here. Stick around. We've got a big finish coming up with Crystal.